All right, I said I was going to make a video on Trump. The inauguration is Friday, and there's a lot to talk about here, and I have spoken about Trump in the past. I voted for Trump. Look, and I think, during the campaign, he had some great proposals, rebuild the infrastructure. I liked him because he was not against or he was not for cutting Social Security and entitlements. I mean, in many ways, he seemed more like a progressive to me. But now I'm really going to focus in on what the next 3 or 4 or 6 months might look like, maybe the next 4 years, who knows, based on what his proposed policies, what he's been talking about. Also, the possibility, maybe the likelihood of big time disruption of expectations. Now, every time there's a change in president, and if you go back, I'm just trying to recall now, I mean, Obama came in, we were in the midst of the financial crisis. Obama really didn't have the capacity, the economic capacity, not that the mainstream of economics, of the economics profession had the capacity either. We know they don't. So Obama was kind of dragged along. Just prior to Obama, Bush, when this whole financial crisis started to really blow up, what was it? Hank Paulson, at the time Treasury Secretary, he proposed the TARP, right? That was the bank bailout, and basically all that really was a form of forbearance, right? Just holding on to. You could have done that just by enacting forbearance or giving forbearance to the banks. In other words, their assets, just saying, hey, we're not going to mark them to the market, and we'll allow you to operate with those assets, because they were all federally regulated assets. They were all government regulated assets, right? You had loans. I mean, everything that a bank has, every asset that a bank has to be approved by the Fed and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, etc., and the FDIC. So, I mean, they were all regulated assets. So to say we needed capital, I mean, it would have been much easier rather than doing that $700 billion that Hank Paulson. I remember he wrote that book. Here was this guy supposed to be the master of the universe of Wall Street, right? The chairman of Goldman Sachs. He said he went home with his wife and he prayed. He prayed. Now here's the guy supposed to, he's the master of the universe. He didn't know what to do. He was freaking praying. I could have easily done it. My son, who's 16, could have done it. A fiscal response to that and the proper Fed response, which didn't happen right away, would have precluded the whole thing. There was no reason why that thing should have blown up to the degree it did. Anyway, Obama came in. They did the fiscal stimulus, all right? And that basically turned everything around. And it was already starting to, at least the financial sector was starting to get better once the Fed understood that it had to lend on an open-ended basis against all assets because they were all regulated already, right? So the market was going way down. It was really, really scary. It turned around. If you look at when Bush came into office, the market was high flying in 2000. It peaked out. Bush was elected. It was a top, right? Not for any fault of his, but it was a top. So, and then Trump is coming in, markets high flying, all these positive expectations. And let's go back to Clinton. Clinton comes in, George H.W. Bush, there was a recession. He only got one term. Actually, the recession we were already starting to pull out of the recession. His timing was bad on that. I mean, a few months, if the election had been held a few months later, 4 or 5 months later, he probably would have been reelected. But we were in a recession. Clinton took credit for the rebound. So it seems like every time there's a change in president, there has been a reversal. But, that's just observational. It doesn't mean there's any, that could just be coincidence. All right. Anyway, Trump is coming in. He says he's going to do all these big things, which I hope he does. We see that fiscal flows are now positive again year over year. They're getting a little bit of acceleration going in here. That's a good thing. However, a lot could go on. That's why I'm a little bit reluctant or hesitant to make any big calls right now, although I think my primary call, which is dollar down, uh, commodities and gold outperform, inflation rising, treasuries down, I think that's going to stay in place. But even that, I mean, you got a Trump administration now filled up with fiscal hawks, all right? You have Congress filled up with fiscal hawks. As a matter of fact, they want to, this Obamacare repeal, which Obamacare is a terrible law, but you got to understand that with Obamacare comes about almost $100 billion of annual insurance premium subsidies that the federal government pays for. You repeal Obamacare, you take away a big chunk of those subsidies, if not all of them. I don't know. And that you're talking about, that would be huge, all right? And they want to cut Medicare. They want to cut Social Security. I don't think Trump's going to go along with that, even if he did put a lot of these fiscal hawks in the cabinet or in his administration. I talked about the corporate tax cut. They're only paying 15% now anyway. And I've gone over the numbers for you. I think, $330 billion out of $2.8 trillion or something like that, or $2.4 trillion of tax revenues, it comes to 15%. That's what corporations pay. You could go look it up on the daily Treasury statement, all right? So basically, he's just going to legitimize or write into the law something that's already going on right now. So I don't know really how big of a benefit that's going to be. And he wants to kind of, pay for that with spending cuts. So to what degree the spending cuts offset the tax cuts, we'll have to see. Again, we're going to be able to see all this stuff because it's going to come through in the flows. We're going to see it in the flows. So why make a forecast on the Trump plan now when we're going to see it? We got to know what it's going to be. We got to know what's going to be voted on. We got to know what's going to be put in place. All I'm saying is, and I have been saying this, there is a big possibility here of and also a very big, dashing of expectations. Just because everybody is so hyped up, everybody's so bullish, everybody's so optimistic on the Trump stimulus. The $1 trillion infrastructure rebuild, I've been over that. That's a public-private partnership he wants to do where basically he's going to entice the private sector, meaning hedge funds, pension funds, to invest their own money, with the enticement being tax incentives, to invest their own money in infrastructure projects that they want to do, which will have a revenue stream attached. So, I mean, basically, the public gets screwed on this twice, as far as I can see, because those tax incentives, which will expand the deficit, and then you know what they say, once the deficit expands, they say, well, we don't have money for education, we don't have money for health care, we don't have money for these other things, right? So it basically is a tax on the middle class, who are then going to have to pay for those roads and tolls and tunnels or whatever, bridges, whatever they're going to do. So the thing is, I don't know, there's a big possibility of disappointment here if you actually look into it. But again, what I'm saying is we got to wait. By the way, there's also the debt ceiling. The thing about Trump that's interesting is he talks big in fiscal terms, which is very, very promising, and I like that. But at the same time, he talks about the $20 trillion in debt, which is not, that's just, again, it's a false understanding of what that debt is. It's not really debt at all. Those are assets, $20 trillion in assets of the non-government, right? That's $20 trillion that has been spent over the last, 227 years, 28 years, more than what has been taken back in taxes. So that resides in the hands of the non-government. That's an asset. You want to get rid of that, you got to take it back. You got to take some of it back or all of it back. How is that good? So he talks about that in terms that's a little bit, frustrating. He talks about reducing deficit, which, you know, can be done if he gets the foreign sector through these tariffs and everything to reduce the budget deficit, to reduce the trade deficit rather. That in effect, functionally, is like reducing the budget deficit. Okay, it's like, I mean, functionally, it's like the causing the foreign sector to spend more than its income. If he could flip that around through those tariffs, if he could make China run trade deficits, but if you do that, and this is what I've said all along, all you people out there who worried and wringing your hands and, you know, freaking out about America losing its dollar, the dollar losing its reserve status, that's going to happen. But that's not going to happen because people are dumping the dollar. That's going to happen because we cause it to happen. If China one day becomes the net importer, not exporter, if China one day becomes the net importer, not even on their own volition, not even by their own policy, but if we kind of force that to happen, then the Chinese currency becomes the global reserve currency. By definition, that'll happen because if we restrict the supply of dollars that people not just want to hold, but need, right? You need dollars to buy oil, you need dollars to buy a lot of things, and they do whatever is necessary to run trade surpluses with the United States, to accumulate those dollars, to buy oil, to net save, okay? If we make those dollars so hard to get through our trade policies, then the world's going to find a different medium. It's going to find a different reserve currency, all right? It might be, who knows? I doubt it's going to be Europe. Might be China. Who knows? I think China sees the writing on the wall. They're reluctant to do it because it's been in their behavior for so long. Their whole economic growth for the past 30 years has been based on exporting to the United States, exporting to the rest of the world. But, you know, if they see that that's not going to be the way anymore, then the whole thing turns around. Anyway, whatever. It's going to be really, really interesting, to put it mildly. But I'll be on top of it. I see everything that happens before everyone else because of MMT, because I look at the flows, and it's all going to be an MMT trader. Which, by the way, if you don't have it, and if you want a 30-day free trial, go to pitbulleconomics.com, click on the tab that says products, and you'll see a link there that says get the 30-day free trial to MMT Trader. Once you have that, you could download, you could check out all the back issues. All right? Anyway, that's my Trump update. Bye.